Dr. Bill Kanaski from Courtroom Sciences. Absolutely thrilled to have a very old friend in the house, D. Smith, Executive Director, NFL Players Association. D, how are you doing?
I'm awesome. Good to see you, buddy. And yes, it's good to connect with old friends.
I tell you what, we were just talking before we went on live here, and we were talking about the lack of sports in our society. And I think it's making a lot of people crazy. How have you been coping without sports?
I don't think I've been without sports. I mean, we got our collective bargaining agreement done in, let's say, the first week or so of March, and that was voted on a Saturday and rolled into a global pandemic on Monday. So, business hasn't stopped. If anything, it's we're probably all running at about 110, 115% right now.
Wow. Question: How are the players dealing with COVID-19? Not being able to work out in groups is what it's sounding like, and a lot of individual workouts. How are they coping with that?
Our players are resilient. I think one of the reasons why they are so successful at this level is they just simply adapt, and they are as mentally strong, not even close. I mean, they're just mentally stronger as well as somewhat physically different than everybody else. But what gives them the edge is really the mental discipline that they have. Mm-hmm. And we pivoted to virtual OTAs.
Yeah.
And that went on without a hitch. Football has evolved over a number of decades, and this is yet another instance where it will just evolve. And our guys will figure it out. Coaches will, but they'll figure it out. Yep. And the goal will be, how do we bend the NFL to the virus as opposed to trying to bend the virus to the NFL?
That's a good point. Now, Dean, you and I go way back to your days as a trial attorney, and I tell you what, we had a lot of fun. But in my first, in my first 2 years of jury consulting, you and I worked on several trials and focus groups together, and I got to tell you, I really, really learned a lot from you. So I have some questions about that, but I think I want to go to a key question here, because the world is very crazy right now. You got a combination of pandemic and a lot of social unrest. Can football save this country, both mentally and socially?
No. 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 I don't want to be too Pollyanna-ish about sports. Sports is a very important place in America. Sports philosophically, if you sort of the earliest book on the philosophy of sport was written by a man named Joseph Huizenga, and the thesis of that early book was that what really defines sport in its essence isn't so much sport as it's play. And so when, certainly I work in the National Football League and work in the business of trade unionism. But when we think about sports, the real beauty of sport is how you and I and our kids and our family, how it relates to how we interact with each other, both engaging in and watching play. And at the end of the day, play, whether you are watching dogs, wrestle in the backyard, or whether you're watching, what I unfortunately still do and then get hurt, messing around with my son, and it's fun and games until he picks me up and puts me somewhere. The real beauty of sport is how it creates social connections. So that's a long way of saying football, NFL is not going to save anything. What will save us is all of us learning how to live and get along and have a view towards what it's like to walk in another person's shoes.
Agreed.
And that's really social engagement. So, what we do in the NFL is such a small, tiny part of play. What we need is a larger and more inclusive, both morally, ethically, and spiritually, of how we're going to interact with each other.
Yeah, I agree. The one thing I miss, which it's, when you start looking back on things, when you're locked up for 3 months in your house and you can't socially engage, going to football games or college basketball games, it's amazing. It's like if everybody's wearing that same color around you, you're wearing the same jersey, and the touchdown gets scored. I don't care what your sex is, your race is. Everybody's hugging and high fiving, and I hope we can get back to that and have some fun soon.
Yeah, and that, look, that is very important. I guess the one piece I worry about a little bit, and part of what I believed in being a good trial lawyer was, having a firm depth in sort of history and literature, and but the one part that I do worry about, and I do think that frankly the country is better off right now not having a lot of sport, is sport as entertainment, sport as an escape, sport as I can focus on this and not focus on that. That's where like Neil Postman would say, that's the risk of entertaining ourselves to death.
Yeah.
And so, one of the reasons I do think that the country has started to look inward is there really isn't an escape.
There's nowhere right now. There's nowhere else to look.
And you have to embrace, what's going on. And so I think it's weird. I mean, every now and then it just seems in our social order that, something comes along and comes a little bit closer to kind of righting the ship, And so, if we can bring back sports, as a function of that social engagement, but prevent it from being an escape so we could ignore everything else, that's closer to the right balance.
Absolutely. Great point. Now, speaking of being a trial attorney, this is my 16th year of jury and trial consulting, and I was kind of a baby when I was on those cases with you. But I got to tell you something I want to address there. One of the best skills I saw you pull off, where I was just literally jaw dropping, and you may be the best I've ever seen. Your ability to get in front of a jury and your storytelling skills were absolutely amazing. And 15, 16 years later, I'm working with a different generation of attorneys. And I got to tell you, they admittedly struggle with it. Talk about the importance of the ability to tell a story to a jury, kind of where you got those skills from, and if you're not able to do that, how it really hurts your case in front of a jury.
Yeah, well, let me start off this way. I mean, you may have been young, but let's just say you were a brilliant baby. So, I haven't worked with anyone, in the field better than you and the team there.
The check's in the mail, D. The check's in the mail.
Well, I'll say this and then answer your question. I think it is extremely important when to be a part of a team, and when people sort of see the world the same way, see the problem the same way, everybody can work in the same way towards the solution. And that makes those partnerships really easy. And I had a fantastic time. It wasn't not stressful, but it was fantastic. The storytelling part, I mean, that's the way I was not only trained as a lawyer in law school, but I come from a family that just is a group of storytellers. And, I come from a long line of Baptist preachers, and it's all about telling stories. It's one thing to sort of, watch a struggling pastor stand up and read a sermon.
Yeah.
It's another thing to watch someone tell a story to a congregation without any notes and choosing to choosing engagement over whatever you've decided to write down, on a sheet of paper. And from your background that ability to connect, to establish a trust network between the deliverer and the person who's receiving the information is far more important psychologically than the tidbit of information that you're actually giving.
Yeah.
And then the other thing too is I really started to research and learn storytelling when I became a prosecutor. That I'll forget the name of the book, but it's somewhere in here.
There.
About the art of storytelling, and the opening of the book is a fable about truth walking into a campfire with people around it, and no one accepted truth because it was raw, it was brutal, and it was ugly. So truth leaves the campfire and comes back clothed in story. And when truth walks back into the campfire clothed in story, everybody around the campfire welcomes truth because it's clothed in something that they can relate to. And I think that's, in essence, if I had to boil down the job of a trial lawyer, how do you clothe, what happens to be your truth, small t truth sometimes, in story? And if you can't tell a story, I mean, you and I both watched, and we had co-counsel.
Bad.
Just bad.
I remember us in the room going like, "Oh no, what is he doing?" I tell you,
that was a good time.
So we got consulted on a case earlier this year before COVID, and I had a client, a newer client, call me and say, "Oh my God, the case didn't." You remember these days? "Oh my God, the case didn't settle. We're actually going to trial. There's a pure panic. We need you to come down. You need to come down and help pick the jury." Okay, I'll buy my flight. I get down there. I think I picked a pretty good jury. And I kid you not. I said, "I'm going to stay in the afternoon for opening statements." The defense counsel got up. This is a couple months ago, with an iPad, and never made eye contact, just read the entire opening from an iPad. I was like, I can't believe I'm seeing this, and obviously there's nothing I can do. I can't take a 20-second and go, "Hey, T.O., baby, you need to stop doing that." Can you talk about the importance of your movement in the courtroom and your eye contact with people, and how if you read it, even off note cards, would be just destructive to your case?
Yeah, my mother is the toughest one in our family, and she would say at that point, someone needed to walk up and deliver a good country slap.
Yeah.
I was always a fan of no notes. I was trained, as a lawyer, young lawyer, young budding lawyer in law school, and really, when a trial lawyer stands up in a courtroom, he or she has to take on that they are the leading actor, the stage director, the showrunner, and the most important person in the courtroom. And I know that, during my career that pissed off a lot of judges.
Oh yeah.
but I always looked at it this way. I mean, the judges in some respects, and again, I'm just taking things that people taught me.
Yeah.
The judge is chained to the bench. The witness is chained to the witness chair. The jury is stuck in a box. The only person in that room with ability and improvisation is a trial lawyer. And if you don't take advantage of that, the worst thing you're doing is ceding the advantage to somebody else. And if there's as good of a jury as you picked, if somebody on the other side is better at that stagecraft,
you're right,
they will take the great jury that you picked.
Yep.
And they will sludge hammer that jury over a bad trial lawyer.
And that's exactly what happened in the case I was just referring to.
Well, and I mean, it's kind of that world. I mean, you get into certain federal courtrooms and some judges engage in that kind of shotgun jury selection where you really have a limited ability.
Yeah, federal court especially,
to even exercise strikes. Yep. And I had the luxury of really learning how to try cases in DC Superior Court.
Wow.
And it's a free-for-all. And so you learn how to take advantage of that lack of structure. And then if you're stuck in a world where you have a tremendous amount of structure, you learn how to take advantage of just the little micro pieces of non-structured engagement that you have.
Yeah.
And man, just take advantage of it, because I have been waxed by really good trial lawyers who had really bad facts, especially when I was a criminal lawyer. Yeah. I mean, I'll never forget, there were probably, 10 or so, criminal justice act lawyers or public defenders.
Yep.
Who, really didn't have a lot to work with when I was prosecuting a case.
Yeah.
And there were a handful of them that would keep me awake at night.
I'm sure.
Literally. Over their ability to try a multi-defendant, conspiracy case with literally a half a page of a legal pad.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
that's amazing.
And oh my, well, once you see it happen, you realize I'm just along for the ride. I know how this is going to end. It's, and so that is a awful feeling. So you really learn sometimes that, this.
Yeah.
It's like the Mike Tyson line, everybody has a plan until you get hit in the face. Right.
Yeah.
And so learning how to pivot, learning how to take advantage of what you're feeling from a jury.
Yeah.
You taught me a lot about, how to pick out certain people in a jury box, how to read body language from a witness. But, so much of that stuff is, and I think, sometimes, really, how do I say this nicely? People who have been in law firms for a very long time, but may not know how to try cases.
Yeah.
They're very good at all the facts. They're very good at, all the wonderful multicolored outlines and tabs. I mean, you saw me. It was basically a notepad, maybe a couple of cards.
Yeah.
That's it.
If that. And so you're trying to manage, I know you and you've studied Herb Stern, and that's the way I was taught, trying cases to win. When you're in a courtroom and you're really trying to leverage the judge, the witness, your opposing counsel, your witness, yourself, all towards what's the best package for the jury. And if you can't do that, you might be a litigator, but you're not a trial lawyer. Exactly. And now I don't want to bring up any PTSD here, any nightmares, but because my true love is actually not the jury psychology part. It's the witness preparation part, because I think that's the key driver of jury decision making. Can you talk about, regardless, you could give the best opening statement ever given on this planet. Talk about how an unprepared witness can absolutely torpedo your case.
Well, yeah, and it has, because again, it goes to managing the stagecraft, right? And imagine you've gone to see Hamilton. It's the best, the best stage you've ever seen. You've got the best director. You've got the best actors. The audience is there. The music is fantastic. And the guy walks in for the first, opening line, and he forgets his words.
Yeah. Okay, game over.
The play is ruined.
Yeah.
So, to me, that's the danger. I mean, I was trained I mean, this is horrible, but I was trained that witnesses are bad.
Yeah.
I mean,
Nothing but trouble.
Nothing but trouble. So, what I would say is what I always tried to do with our witnesses, both as a prosecutor, criminal defense lawyer, and when we were trying cases together, was really take the minimalist view.
Yeah.
That, deliver a well-prepared witness and delivering that in a minimal way where it touches the things or the elements that you have to do, but you don't take on any harm. I would choose a witness who delivers 15 minutes of crisp, nearly flawless testimony rather than a witness who delivers a solid hour. Because a solid hour. And the reason why I think it has such a negative impact is I think two things happen. And I think sometimes lawyers only think of the one bad thing. Okay, the first bad thing that happens is your witness doesn't do well on the stand and doesn't perform well.
Yeah.
Everybody understands that. I mean, a 5-year-old gets that. I think the difference between, what I learned from really good trial lawyers was two things actually happen. One, your witness doesn't get something right. Second, and perhaps even more important, the jury now takes that flaw or misstep or error, and they actually layer it on to the person who presented the witness.
Yep, exactly.
And so it breaks that trust dynamic, and they no longer trust you as a truth teller. And now that's something that carries on not only after that witness, it carries on to the next witness, it carries on to everything you do, and now you carry that baggage
the poison
into closing.
Yep. It's
the gift that keeps on giving. So, for me, I have always believed that, and again, it feeds into my ego, that trial lawyers are the people who deliver wins.
Yeah.
And if like you said, you always pick a great jury. If they don't believe me at the end, it's not going to matter.
Yeah, you're right. No, you're absolutely right. Okay, let's get back to sports. Okay.
No.
Absolutely. Okay, NFL, MLB, NBA. Which Players Association director has the biggest headaches?
Wow.
Little curveball there.
Yeah, that's a curveball. I think we all have different challenges.
Yeah.
Tony Clark is brilliant. He's probably the Players Association chief that I'm the closest to. He's like a brother. Tony was a tremendous athlete, multi-sport guy, played in a long time in the MLB. He has a challenge that I don't have. Somewhere between 40 and 60% of any given team that he visits is from another country.
Yeah, that's
a challenge.
It's huge.
He's got to conduct his team meetings half in Spanish. So, yeah, my challenge, tends to be that we have the shortest playing careers.
Yeah.
Michelle Roberts, in the NBA, she probably has the youngest, along with Tony, probably has the youngest players because they come right, a year out of college.
Yeah.
So, I like my gig. Most of our guys are 4-year guys. They're older. I do think that brings a different level of maturity.
Yes.
Into it. But I also have 2,000 special cats.
Yeah, I'm actually sure. And you brought up something interesting about the maturity of the players, and we've seen the AFL and now the XFL again fail for a number of different reasons. The NFL really is the only sport without a farm system, I guess, or I guess the college is the I guess natural farm system.
Yes, thank goodness.
Is it gonna? Should it stay that way, or should there be a different farm system? And why is that? You don't want Vince McMahon?
No. I mean, look, I wouldn't mind. I wouldn't mind competitors to the NFL, but I have been a hardliner when it comes to quote unquote farm systems, because it creates a group of professional athletes who are second class citizens.
Yeah.
And so you look at minor league baseball, where you've got probably quadruple the number of them in the minor leagues that are playing in the majors. They play without a collective bargaining agreement. They play without minimum salaries. They play without benefits.
Yep.
And that's a system that I think breeds inequity.
Yeah.
And I also think it's not good for the individual players, because take basketball's, I forget what they call it, G League or whatever they call it. Everybody can name the first four guys on a NBA roster.
Yeah.
After you get to guy 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Yep. Who knows?
It's whomever. And so, and the tough thing for those group of guys is every year, a large group of those guys go back into this G League pool, and they have to play all year against, another 2,000 people, with the hope of once again being guy 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And I think that creates an inequity. And so, as long as I'm here, we're never going to have a minor league football, with the NFL, because I think it would simply mean that a larger group of our guys would have the lack of job security.
That's a very good point. Now, with COVID kind of taking over the headlines, I know the issue of CTE has been a very important issue to you.
Yep.
And I've read titled, "Are we going to have football in 15, 20 years?" And a lot of those articles referenced the fact that insurance coverage is becoming more and more difficult. So I guess the first question is, do you think the league is handling the CTE issue in the right way? And then secondarily, how does the insurance industry really handle this? And is that going to be a barrier going forward?
Yeah, I think I think the biggest risk to global football, from youth all the way up, the biggest risk is clearly little leagues, high schools, local jurisdictions can get insurance coverage. Yeah. I mean, that is going to be, that's the threat, really. And we can go back and forth on whether it's a real threat or just simply an insurance company decides who they want to insure, right? And once you pool the risk, you have a relatively small risk of massive payouts, but it's a business that is in the business of not paying out claims.
And my bills, by the way, my invoice.
So, that's the real threat to football up to, college and the pros.
Yeah.
That's not really a huge threat, with major college programs and the pros. Do I think the league is handling it the right way? I would say this. I think they've handled it better, since 2009, when the union, really became aggressive about preventing, unnecessary head trauma. So, look, the problem with anything like CTE, and it's one of the things that keeps me awake at night dealing with COVID. While we know a lot more about head injuries and long-term consequences of head injuries, we still know far less than there is to know.
Yeah.
And so, even now when we are, grinding through, if and when and to what extent football returns, one of these interesting questions out there is, we're dealing with a novel and emerging virus.
Yeah.
And we don't know whether there could be long-term, lung cancer consequences, long-term heart consequences. And so, it's sort of, I think sometimes it's a blessing and a curse to come into this job, being a long-term liability lawyer.
Yeah.
Sometimes I dream, that I knew less about stuff.
Yeah.
But I don't, and so, I know everybody wants football to come back, but right now there's just a whole lot of things that we're trying to work through, and we're trying to force the league to bear the responsibility that an employer would normally have.
Yeah.
And try to prepare the best we can for the unknown.
Excellent point, Steve. We're just kind of wrapping up here. The challenges that you faced as a young Black attorney, times are actually different, very, very different now from when you started. And you have I have had a pleasure of working with some young, thriving Black attorneys. What advice would you give them as far as career advice in 2020? And I will say this, because there's an interaction effect, and this has nothing to do with skin color. 40 and 50-something partners despise millennial associates. They want to leave at 5:01. They want to come in at 9:30.
Yeah.
They're like the redheaded stepchildren of every law firm right now, and I hear complaints on a weekly basis.
Yeah.
What advice would you give young Black attorneys to get to that partnership level, to really thrive in the field of law?
Yeah, I think two things. One, I loved being a partner at both Latham and Watkins and Patton Boggs. I really loved it. I mean, my advice would be, and I'm going to frame this the right way, if you want to be a partner at a major law firm, and I would start there, because you and I both know, I think every now and then people sort of have this, pie in the sky vision of what it likes to be a partner at a major law firm. And, let's just say that the days of playing, 4 rounds of golf a week and, probably not. So I would say, if you want to be a partner at a major law firm, my advice to, especially, lawyers of color is, find that area of law that you love and perfect your craft. Because, like a skilled surgeon, like a skilled diamond cutter, you're going to face a whole lot of challenges. But if you have not perfected your craft, it doesn't matter if you've managed everything else. The second thing I would say is be aggressive. I mean, we had a wonderful time working together. You and I understood and saw a lot of things going on in the background about how lawyers are selected for trial teams, and the politics of what goes on, in these trials, and still go on, I'm sure. Now, control the things that you can control. Try to play the dozens on the things that you can't control.
Yeah.
But I learned a lot, even after, coming out of the U.S. Attorney's Office. I learned a lot after having tried, nearly 200 jury trials.
That's amazing. You don't
handling
see that today, but you don't see that today, by the way. You get a guy with 30. It's like,
yeah, and that is, we can talk about that for another, 2 hours. I think that trial lawyers, just trials are things that we just don't see much anymore. But, the advice to younger lawyers is that you are always going to have to face things, outside of the courtroom. Perfect your skill. And when it comes to handling those things that happen outside of the courtroom, yes, you're going to have to manage them with a level of grace and a level of skill and sometimes a level of politics.
Yeah.
But that said, I just never felt that there was any other course than to just be aggressive and to have confidence in my own skill. And, And, that doesn't mean you're going to win every internal fight. But, I'd much rather go out having given it that shot and losing rather than second guessing myself later on and saying, hey, maybe I should have been a little more aggressive. But yeah, I mean, I the only thing I miss, in this current job is I would do just about anything to dry case.
Yeah, I bet. It's itching, man. You got the itch. I can tell. I can see. Look,
I miss it. It's well, it's just also the psychological part of, something starts and something ends.
Yeah.
And you either win or you lose. Yeah. There's well, it's terrible if you lose, but yeah. I do miss the I do miss sort of the weight of a controlled outcome. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I miss working with you. It was just fun.
Well, I got 2 more minutes, Steve, if you can hang on.
Yeah.
And so I told some family and some friends and some colleagues, I'm like, hey, I'm podcasting with D. Smith this week. Do you have any questions for D. Smith? Now, I will give the caveat. If your answers, this is just like a lightning round of 5 or 6 questions.
Okay, it's all good.
If you say no comment, I have no problem with that.
That's like one thing I just abhor. I answer every question. People may not like the answer, but
again, these aren't my questions. These are kind of questions. Okay, number 1. Will the Patriots continue to cheat despite not having Tom Brady anymore?
The Patriots are the Patriots.
Okay, good. Good answer. You versus Roger Goodell in a UFC fight. Who wins?
I'm always going to be the first guy to cheat, so I win.
Oh, very perfect. Did the Bears screw over Walter Payton in the 1985 Super Bowl by not letting him score a touchdown?
Yes.
They took the fridge instead, remember?
Well, I just think there's certain things you have to do.
Yeah, and that documentary is sad at the end. It's like, come on, man.
It's just, come on, man. Right. Come on.
That was just wrong. Okay. End zone celebrations after touchdowns, good or bad?
Great.
You like them?
Love them.
Keep it coming. I think the fans love them. Okay, 2 more questions. Most terrifying football player ever, Dick Buckus or Lawrence Taylor? If you're an offensive player, who would you fear? That's a tough one. Now you can go Tar Heels on this one, D. Even though you went to UVA, come on.
I'm going to choose neither. I'm going to choose Adam Jones.
Okay, because I just watched that. Thought, yeah. You agree with Adam Jones? Okay.
I've never met a guy who, for all intents and purposes, is almost the same size as me, but played for about 100 years.
Yeah.
And did everything from running back kicks to covering 6'6" wide receivers. And when you talk to people in the league, you always heard of guys who were like, okay, that's the one guy I don't want any part.
You don't mess with him.
I don't want any part.
Okay, last question for you.
Yeah.
Okay, what's the more thrilling activity? Watching paint dry or watching Virginia basketball offense?
I'm going to go with
try on that one.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know me, as long as there's the W right after the end of Virginia, I'm good. But what's weird now is we've, my family, my wife and I met, at UVA. We got married at UVA. And now we root for Maryland because our son plays lacrosse for the Terps. So,
well,
we're pure Terps.
You got it. Well, I wore the Carolina blue, which annoys the Terps Cavaliers. I did that.
I saw it.
I did that when we first got
I know you did.
Well, Dee, thank you so much for being on the podcast. Please keep in touch. Best wishes to you, and stay safe out there. And we'd love to have you back sometime in the future, okay?
Man, anytime you call, I'll do this. This is the most fun I've had in a long time. So thank you, buddy.
Thank you, buddy. Talk to you soon.
You too. Bye.